play Elden Ring for the first time and have already played Dark Souls before, everything somehow feels pretty familiar. Haven't I seen these rats somewhere before? Doesn't the Erdtree Sentinel kind of look like the Asylum Demon? I feel like I know this blacksmith from somewhere. At the very least, he looks a lot like the blacksmith from Dark Souls. Of course, there are many connections between Dark Souls and Elden Ring, but just because those slime creatures already existed in Kingsfield, I wouldn't say that Elden Ring is connected to Kingsfield. Nevertheless, there are some clues that Elden Ring could actually take place in the world of Dark Souls. And especially with the new Elden Ring Nightreign, these theories don't seem so far-fetched. Today I want to show you exactly how Elden Ring could be connected to Dark Souls, by showing you the 3 most common theories. But before we get started, I'd appreciate it if you subscribe, because over 92% of users haven't subscribed yet. That's really unfortunate, because soon the Elden Ring fan movie Becoming Blade of Miquella will be released. And you definitely don't want to miss that, so subscribing is definitely worth it. Feel free to share your thoughts and opinions on each of these theories in the comments. I'd personally love to know which theory you think fits best, because even though FromSoftware has never officially confirmed a connection, I still believe that one of these theories could be true. Because let's be honest, FromSoftware isn't just any company, a lazy studio that just thinks, hey, let's just throw in a few more enemies from the other games, a few weapons, a few items that somehow makes it cooler. The company that tells a unique story with almost every item. Yeah, sure. But for now, let us shift our focus and move right along to our very first theory regarding the mysterious world of Elden Ring.
The events of the movie Ring are set to unfold during the late hours of the night after the sun has gone down. Souls.
Yes, he said it. And even though we are still not entirely sure whether it was a slip of the tongue or if good old George R. Martin mixed something up, it does seem like he knows about a connection to Dark Souls, because let's be honest, how else would good old George even know the title Dark Souls? Besides, I really think he's of sound mind and not just rambling about something or other. Someone who comes up with such complex stories doesn't just spout some nonsense he once heard. How George R. Martin actually knows about Dark Souls, of course, we don't really know for sure. But in the actual complex story of Dark Souls, it is explained to us very early on that long before the Age of Fire, there was an ancient Age of Dragons. And even in the opening cinematic scene, we see these massive dragons who once ruled over the entire world being fought against in a great war. Gwyn's mighty bolts of lightning cleave apart their ancient stone scales. The legendary Age of Dragons is also frequently mentioned throughout the world of Elden Ring. And although this primordial age also seems to have long since passed here, and the subsequent Age of Fire has not yet begun, this could be an initial hint that the events of Elden Ring take place in the distant past and that the Age of Dragons must have happened much earlier than we previously thought. According to the Pearl Drake Talisman, the mighty ancient dragons who ruled in the era long before the Erdtree protected their lord like a solid wall of living stone. In the remembrance of the Dragon Lord, we learn the following. It is said that the Dragon Lord, whose seat lies in the heart of the storm beyond time, was an Elden Lord in the age before the Erdtree, and Seath the Scaleless Lord betrayed his own kind, and the ancient dragons were finally no more. On the other hand, there are the Erdtree-like trees, which are mentioned quite frequently in Dark Souls. However, the trees in Dark Souls are called Archtrees. Nevertheless, these trees serve the same function as the Erdtree to support and uphold the world. But the trees not only have the same function, they are also hollow inside, hollow, which is exactly the case with the Erdtree as well. The theory now suggests that the Erdtrees from Elden Ring are exactly the same trees, just like in Dark Souls, only fully grown or not fully grown, and much more robust than they were in Dark Souls. This is particularly striking and evident in the boss room of the Elden Beast, where we see the magnificent, majestically glowing trees that support the world. In Dark Souls, we see a remarkably similar and haunting level, only here the trees already seem quite old and their ancient power appears to have faded. Apparently the will of the outer gods or their influence is no longer strong enough here to create a true Erdtree, or so the theory goes. In Elden Ring there are also NPCs who are quite similar to the NPCs in Dark Souls, and I don't just mean the Sigmire of Katarina armor set. In Elden Ring, for example, we can meet the blind Irina. She wants to become a finger maiden. She comes from House Moore. Yes, exactly, Norne. In Dark Souls, on the other hand, we encounter a blind young woman during the Age of Fire who wants to become a firekeeper. And what might her name be? That's right, Irina. And what kind of armor set is her protector wearing? That's right, the Morn armor set and the Morn helm. Exactly, that's right. Morne. And that's really supposed to be a coincidence? Well, I don't know about that. Personally, I find this theory to be quite fascinating. What if the Finger Maidens are closely related to the role of the old Firekeepers, and that's how House Morn originally came into existence, which we can find within Elden Ring? Another striking NPC is the Dung Eater, who wears a special sun as a pendant. Although the Dung Eater is of course a murderer, this pendant is supposed to bring him light, which in his case hasn't worked out so well. The Dung Eater's armor explicitly describes the massive and heavy sun-shaped medallion is a powerful and enduring symbol of the guidance he saw long ago. And it is also a symbol of the ring that he will one day find with its help. The sun is a lingering remnant of ancient times, and we find this very same sun in Dark Souls as well. The beloved NPC from Dark Souls, Solaire, worships this very sun and this very religion, and he also wears it as a sign of his faith. Is it really just a coincidence? Hard to say. Of course, it's possible that Solaire's visions have spread, and the Dung Eater is one of the last believers. But it could also be that Elden Ring began with the faith in the sun, which brings us to the next theory.
Oh my dear beloved son, what can I possibly do now? What should I do in this moment? My precious son, my dear, dear son, tell me, what is left for me to do in this world?
Theory number 2, Elden Ring, takes place before Dark Souls. As already mentioned, these are just theories, and that's why of course we don't know whether the world of Elden Ring invented the coffin journey first, or whether it was the one from Dark Souls. Of course the best coffin is still in Dark Souls 2, which simply changes your gender, but all these similarities do make me suspicious, especially because I don't think FromSoftware is a company that just puts things into a game without reason, and sometimes even brings the characters over to the company, give them a similar lore. Although, of course, the Moonlight Sword appears in almost every game. By the way, I made a video about that a long time ago, definitely check it out. I was really young back then, it would be pretty funny I think. For you though, I think it's more like a mascot or a sort of holy grail that has consistently accompanied FromSoftware over the years. And yes, the Moonlight Sword is also featured in Elden Ring, but that's really just one part of a much bigger tradition. That doesn't necessarily prove that Elden Ring is connected to Dark Souls. Rather, it's the decisions we make in Elden Ring that all fit very well with Dark. Souls. In Elden Ring, we burn the Erdtree and can choose between different endings. One of the most important endings for this theory, that Elden Ring takes place before Dark Souls, is probably the Frenzied Flame ending. Because if we've unlocked this ending and let ourselves be groped naked by a few fingers, we are reborn as the Frenzied Flame Lord and usher in the Age of Fire. So, were you paying attention? That's right. With the Age of Fire, everything begins in Dark Souls, and it comes after the Age of Dragons, which in Elden Ring is already over. So, with this ending, the first theory is basically debunked.
But then there was the first flame, and with that fire came the great disparity, heat and cold, life and death, and light and dark.
According to some fan theories, it goes even further than that. Supposedly, each ending leads to a different event in the Soulsborne universe. According to this, the Age of Stars ending would lead to the events of the Soulsborne universe, specifically to Bloodborne, because there's a connection to the moon here. The Frenzied Flame ending would then introduce the Dark Souls series as previously explained, since this is where the Age of Fire is ushered in, and the Destiny Death ending then leads to the events of Demon Souls. Yeah, but to elaborate further on this theory now would really be too much of a good thing.
Freud would have a field day.
So if Elden Ring takes place before Dark Souls, the Firekeepers from Dark Souls could be a new form of the old finger maidens, and the more armor a remnant from ancient times. That way, Solaire could have turned the sun from the Dung Eater into his faithful good, and so on and so forth. In this theory, Sif from Dark Souls could be an evolved version of Radagon's Red Wolf. And maybe the specific armor from this guy here was also a remnant from ancient times, which we also find once again in the world of Dark Souls. Looks pretty old to me too, the set from Elden Ring, not the one from Dark Souls. Yes, I know it sounds a bit strange and sometimes it is a bit confusing, but things actually get quite a bit more complicated, because now we come to fascinating theory number 3. Elden Ring is a multiverse. Yes, that's right. Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, and all the other heroes have already done it. And before you decide to tune out, this theory actually has a lot of solid arguments to consider. You shouldn't imagine the whole thing as being so complicated with different timelines and a time academy. Instead, the theory suggests that the events in Elden Ring and Dark Souls partly take place in parallel. In all parts of the Dark Souls trilogy and also in Elden Ring, there is repeated mention of lands beyond. And it's pointed out that there are other worlds as well. So Elden Ring could therefore be a part of the world of Dark Souls. The lands between, which cannot be reached so easily, as Melina has already explained to us.
Upon the moment of thy eventual passing, I will restore once more what I once returned to the lands between. Go forth to wage thy war and brandish aloft the Elden Ring.
The lands between. That's a rather strange name for a land. However, it could mean that the lands between lie between worlds, and let's be honest, sometimes it really does feel quite mystical here in Elden Ring. As if this were a kind of island with special magical properties. Huh, what is he rambling about, you're probably thinking now? Hasn't it really occurred to you yet? Then pay attention. The Roundtable Hold we're in is not a real Roundtable Hold. It lies outside the lands. The real Roundtable Hold can actually be found in Leyndell. And strangely enough, it is exactly the very same Roundtable Hold that we also actually enter. We also find a sword here, one that was probably used in the Roundtable Hold before. The Sword of Secret Words says the following: in the past, when the Two Fingers were still full of power and masters of persuasion, many heroes gathered at the Roundtable Hold. This sword is strongly reminiscent of the Roundtable Hold we are in, yet this Roundtable Hold seems to be just a fictional construct. A place where wanderers from foreign worlds meet, perhaps even created by Marika. Why else would the various NPCs come to this place? They all seem to come from different worlds, except for the blacksmith who was commissioned by Marika to create a weapon to kill gods. This very blacksmith is available to all wanderers. Perhaps it is to find the legendary chosen one who can wield such a weapon.
Nothing special. I'm a prisoner, and these are my chains. I'm trapped by the hold. I'm dying, Smith. I'll keep smithing for you fools.
But it becomes even clearer when we burn the Erdtree, and thus the round table also burns. Is the round table inside the Erdtree now, or why is it burning here? I don't think so. However, the round table burns because Melina also burns, who, according to theory, was created by Marika to help travelers. And yes, of course, there are still thousands of theories about Melina. Accordingly, she only shows us the round table once she has gained some trust, and it seems to be the same with the other travelers. This land between worlds is said to have been caused by the destruction of the Elden Ring. But since Marika could already foresee what would happen, she first sent away her first husband, Huaralu, and his valiant warriors so that they would eventually return as the Tarnished. Thus, we too have returned from our long campaign, risen again as Tarnished. But as already mentioned, it is not quite so easy to reach the lands between. And although patches like the Moonlight Sword also serves as a mascot for FromSoftware, I find myself still wondering how he managed to make his way into this world. Moreover, Patches talks to me as if he already knows me from another world. He even says that it wouldn't be like me at all if I were to spare him, even though it seems like I've met him for the first time. Or is it possible that we Tarnished have actually encountered the infamous Patches before, long ago outside the lands between? Perhaps it was during our arduous journey through the world of Dark Souls where we fought many grueling battles and died frequently, just like the requirements for being Tarnished, just as Marika demanded. Because we are often told that there are lands outside of Elden Ring, but apparently with Elden Ring Nightreign, even more familiar faces are coming to the lands between, which also supports this theory.